Welcome to the SolidCAM University channel. This video's topic is quarter round tool definition. So a lot of the new functions in the toolkit allow you to create various tool shapes and sizes depending on different items. In this video, we're going to focus just mainly on how to make a quarter round tool. It's the most commonly requested tool shape or type, and we're just going to make a video on how to make that specifically. But the functions you find in this video apply to pretty much any shape or type of tool you'd like to create in the SolidCAM toolkit. So let's start by just going to the basics. So we're going to go to Tools, SolidCAM Toolkit, New Tool Library, and I'm going to start by making tool components. The components are basically the individual tools or individual items you're going to put in your toolkit, and then later you will assemble these in a Tool Assemblies menu, or you'll assemble them and then put them in their proper stations in the Machine Tool Setup menu. So in Toolkit, Tool Components, anytime you do a shape tool that is not one of the shapes that you find in this list here, it's always a good idea to just use the flat end mill, only because flat end mills can be used in many different operations within SolidCAM, and it's a very basic definition as well. That's really just an overall length, a diameter, a cutting length, that sort of thing. So in a general shape tool definition, you can either do it using the dimensions here, let's say for whatever shape you choose here. But if you have a unique shape, you want to go up to shape type. And instead of parameter data, you can use either Sketch 2D or 3D model. Now, let's take a look at Sketch 2D because this is going to be the one that has the most functions. And depending on what you're doing, is either the most detailed or at least maybe somewhat easier. So the Sketch shape type allows me to open up this flat end mill, and we can see that the flat end mill is actually defined by these three cylinders. This would be the flute length or the cutting length. This would be just the shank, and then this would be the arbor. Now I want to turn this into a quarter round tool. So I don't necessarily need this guy right here. So I'm just going to click on it, left click on it, then right click and delete it. So now I just have those two cylinders. And if I bring it back to this bottom cylinder again, then right click again, you can see that I can add a shape below, and it uses the building blocks that we see on the side here. So you could start a shape tool fresh using these items here, or you can just right click and then add shape below. In this case, I want to add that corner round shape right here. This is the bottom corner round shape. So that's actually called a torus. Now that I have these shapes here, I can just shape it the way I like. So let's go up to the arbor. Let's make the arbor 1/2 inch, and the height, let's just make it 2 inches. The second cylinder, let's make this put it 625, and the height, maybe I'll just leave that as 1/4 inch. And then for the torus, this is actually the corner round portion that we're looking for. Let's make this a radius of 250. Start angle and sweep, that's 90 degrees. That's what we're looking for. And the bottom diameter, let's make that 125. Okay. So by setting these parameters here, you can see that these three shape items, the building blocks here, take that shape. If I bring it back to here, I'm still using the flat end mill definition, but now it's removed all the bits that are unnecessary, and we can actually give this some proper dimensions. So I made my arbor 1/2 inch. I'll make that 1/2 inch. My cutting length, let's just make it the actual quarter round bits. That will just be the radius. And then if I wanted to, if this information fed into fusion speeds or anything else, I can just tell it number of flutes. If I bring up my tool picture, you should see that I have defined a quarter round tool with my radius, my cutting length as indicated by that yellow portion there, and mounting on the top there. So really simple way to use the sketch data to create a corner round tool, and it didn't even take that long. Now, if I had much more of a unique looking quarter round tool or much more detailed one, maybe it has some flaring on the top and the bottom, maybe my arc sweep is a little different, so my top and bottom diameters are a little different. Rather than going and trying to build it using this, there is an option here to grab a sketch. So what I'd like to do first is let me add another tool, and we're going to use sketch data on this one. And I'm going to ignore all this. I'm going to jump right to this item here. What this is going to do is it's going to bring up kind of a template in the background. This is a SolidCAM template but it actually is a SolidWorks sketch. What this will let me do is define a tool based only on a SolidWorks sketch, basically just this kind of revolved portion here. And if I had a sketch that represented my corner round tool, I could import it here and define it. So let's do that. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to open up a corner round tool that I created. So you can see it's just, again, a very similar cross section of that. And in this sketch, I'm going to open it for editing, and I'm just going to do a grab. I'm just going to do a window here, grab all this, and then Control-C as in Charlie on my keyboard, just to copy all that. Get out of this sketch. I'm just going to minimize that for now. We'll go back to our SolidCAM template. Here, I'm actually going to take a look at the template itself, and there's a sketch in here as well. I'm going to manipulate this sketch. So before we even do anything inside SolidCAM, we're just going to manipulate this sketch to essentially just include the sketch that I just created. So again, opening up the sketch for editing, you can see it's highlighted in blue, indicating that we're inside the sketch. On my keyboard, I will click on Control-V as in Victor, importing my sketch. So I'm just going to place this in the proper position here so that I can define it as my shape tool. So again, the functionality here is not that different than the shape tool functionality, but we're going to do this specifically for a corner round. So what I'd like to do first is just highlight that back up, and I'm going to do a mirror. I don't want to copy the mirror because I'm going to flip this guy so it has the same orientation as this shape tool here. And we're going to mirror about essentially just this line right here. So if I click the green check mark, I basically have flipped that. So now if I bring that over here and rotate it, I should be able to get the same sort of orientation and views as the template. So let's do that. So click on Move Entities, highlight that once again. You can see that all those items are highlighted. I'm going to move those from this start point, which is the bottom center of the tool. You can see it's following my mouse now. And I'm going to put it in the same location as the reference point for the existing tool. That guy right there. So now that's in the right position, we'll go to Rotate Entities. And this time we have to select my items once again, like so. Center rotation is going to be bottom center once again. I'm just going to move this in one direction just to see which way is positive. And that way I'll know I can put a -90 in there. Rotates it like that. And there we go. So now that tool right there is the one I'm looking to do. I can just get rid of all these old ones here. So let's just grab these. This is from the template. We're not even going to use these. So I'm just looking to get rid of these. So I'm just going to delete each one of these in succession. Okay, so the only sketch on screen should be the one that belongs to my quarter round tool. I'll exit out of that sketch. And now going back into SolidCAM, basically this window right here, I will define my sketch. Since we're using a sketch that represents the cross-section, I'm just going to grab the cross-sectional portions. I'm not really interested in grabbing the center line because SolidCAM will determine that for me, basically. So just this bit right here. As soon as I click the green check mark, it closes that center line for me. Now I just need to pick a reference point. Again, reference point should just be that bottom center of the tool. That way you can tell it that it rotates around that point. When you go to define your tool, you're giving it either a cutting diameter, or we'll see later, you can give it a cutting point. You can define this tool a little more easier, a little more, makes a little more sense when you're in the actual toolkit. But here, we're just defining the sketch the way we just did. We'll click Finish. And what happens now is it takes that sketch, revolves it around the center axis of the tool, and it gives us this shape here. Basically, revolves the sketch for me. And then I can go back to my topology and then type in my proper details. So cutting length of 250. And again, very similar to what we just saw. So if you have a sketch that represents your corner round tool, or in general, just your shape tool. You can bring that sketch in here as well using the procedures we just did, or you can use the building blocks to build this as well. Now, finally, you could do this using a 3D model if you got a 3D model from your tool supplier. So that could be a step file, that could be an IGES file, that could be an STL as well. All you would need to do is convert it into an STL and then use the same STL solid tool definitions we've seen in the previous training videos on this YouTube channel. But for corner round tool, these are the two methods that yield themselves the easiest, because chances are you're not going to have a 3D model, but you will have some dimensions you're looking to create. So let's do a save on this. I'm just going to save this as corner round tool. This is just the basic shape of the tool. But now if I bring this into a tool assemblies library basically meaning that it's the type of library where you're going to actually use it in a part file, we'll see that I can actually add some cutting diameters as well. So I'm going to switch this to advanced view. I'll import from my corner round tool. Okay, and then from there, you'll see now that there's a plus sign next to it. If I click that plus sign, I have my cutting diameter. So the cutting diameter actually takes its dimensions from the topology page as well. So this is actually a 1/2 inch cutting diameter right at the tip of the tool. But for a corner round, I might not want to define it by that. I might want to define it by, let's say, this diameter down here. So if I click on, right click in this window, go to measure, I can find out what diameter of this, if it translates correctly and gives you a nice circle. If not, I know I made that 1/8 of an inch. So what I would do is I would come over here, right click, add cutting diameter. And if I want to drive this tool, if I want to define the movement of this tool by that bottom diameter, I'll leave the height at 0, but I'll set the radius at 0.625. What we'll see now is it changes the cutting diameter. So now in my profile toolpaths, in my pocketing toolpath, if that would apply here, any toolpath that I'm telling it to follow a specific chain, it will now use this diameter to follow that chain. So if I were looking to define a corner round operation, I could choose the bottom edge of the corner round and then just use that edge, and I don't have to do any shifting or anything like that. Likewise, I could do the same for the top. So if we added another cutting diameter, let's say we're doing it for the top now, the height is basically the height of the radius. So let's put that at 0.25. And the radius should be, I believe it was 625. Actually, my mistake. I should put that at a radius. So let's put that at 3.125. There we go. So height from the tip of the tool and radius. So in my case, I made a mistake. I put the diameter. I should have put the radius. Now I'm defining it as the top edge of that corner rad. So again, same thing. In my geometry, I could choose the top edge of my corner rad, and then I can get this to follow exactly on that edge right there. So using cutting points, I can define these shape tools to follow points on my chain without having to do any shifting. What this one right here would allow me to do is not need to put in any depth in my profile toolpath. I can tell it to just go at, choose the top edge of a corner rad and set my depth to 0, and this tool will follow that along by this edge right here. It'll actually dip the tip of the tool itself without having to put any profile depths in my profile or even pocketing toolpaths. Any questions in this or anything else, just give us a call at 1-866-975-1115 extension 2. You can send us your parts or your questions via the ticket system at solidcamsupport.com, and stay tuned for the rest of the videos in this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.